Even a potato in a dark cellar has a certain low cunning about him, which serves him in excellent stead.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. I remembered what podcast we were doing. You're welcome. Matthew, what did that quote come from?
That was a quote from a book called Erewhon.
Erewhon. But that's not the book we're doing.
But according to the Dune Wiki and some other sources, Erewhon was by
Mr. Butler.
Mr. Butler. Stephen Butler, I think. Was an inspiration for the Butlerian Jihad in Dune.
In Dune, which is what we're actually going to talk about.
We're doing it.
We're doing it again, as everybody knows who follows me on Instagram, which why I don't post anything, but I do post schedules. So you would know we're doing Dune. And actually, I have a little confession. We're going to do Dune a little bit differently than we usually do our book episodes. So we've been doing like one book episode a month, which gives us time to read it, gives you time to read it, gives us time to kind of digest it. But we have decided in our infinite wisdom that since we have already covered Dune, that instead of talking about it in a general sense like we did the last time, we are going to break it up into the books. So we have actually, not the books like
Whoa.
books.
We're not breaking it up. We're breaking it down.
We're breaking it down, but not like in Dune, Children of Dune, Dune Messiah, but like the book Dune itself is divided into 3 separate sub-books. And it is Dune, Muad'Dib, and I forget what the last one is. The Prophet.
I think. Maybe that's from Heretics.
I say I don't have a copy right here in my lap and couldn't just look it up.
Messiah. Maybe the Prophet is from Messiah.
It's the Prophet. Dune, Muad'Dib, and the Prophet. So
Gotcha.
We are doing just book 1 for this particular podcast. So that is like roughly the first 300-ish pages.
Dune, book 1, Dune.
Dune, correct. And it is in
Dune,
my
Dune,
copy.
Dune.
My copy, it's 325 pages. So it's a book. I mean, it's a book, but it's like a sub book. And we felt like we would do this because it gave us a chance to more thoroughly break down our thoughts on each section because we're limiting our discussion more or less to that section.
Yeah.
Matt also took the opportunity to at least skim Erewhon.
Yes. I thought, okay, if this part of Erewhon was the inspiration to Frank Herbert for the Butlerian Jihad, what the fuck happened there? So I wanted to find out. And oh man, it's public domain.
Yeah, because it's real old.
Yeah, because it's 1871 is when it was written. And so the first 2/3 of the book feels very much like The Time Machine.
Okay. Social commentary couched in.
And just a dry Englishman on an adventure narrating his experience in a very dry English way. And I skipped most of it. Probably every 3 or 4 pages I would realize, okay, let me just see what's going on. Oh, it's not even the next day. He's still in the process of meeting this person. And it's been 5 pages, and now we're back to, now he's introducing his daughter.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then we get to, and the copy that I got from Libby was a second printing from 1910. No, it may have been from earlier, but anyway, there was an introduction to the second printing by the author, and he had a lot to say. But part of what he was saying was readers, editor, maybe, had kind of communicated that certain chapters about the College of Unreason and the Book of the Machine should be removed because it felt so absurd and was a big tonal shift from the first part of the story. And obviously he couldn't actually believe these things. But in his new introduction, he said, no, absolutely, he believed everything he said, and the people who were calling him out were losers, and they can fuck off. And so he kept them in there. And it was the Book of the Machine. So English guy is in the foreword, he says he was in New Zealand. In the book, he's obfuscating it because he doesn't want someone else to find this hidden civilization in the mountains of New Zealand.
Mm.
But it's this, to him, fairly primitive society. But then they end up taking him through this museum with all these broken down machines, all the way through machines that were more advanced than what the British had in the late 1800s. But all these machines are 300 to 400 years old. And so he's very confused. Why do they have more advanced machines than us that are in such a state of disrepair? Because they're so old. And it turns out several hundred years before, a guy had written a book called The Book of the Machine that proposed machines eventually will develop to a level where they will supplant humanity, and humanity will be enslaved to the machines. And there's so much kind of full-blown abstract philosophical concepts being discussed where and I really liked the trick of, then the author of this book that I'm translating went off into a whole kind of detailed argument that either I didn't follow, I was unable to translate effectively, or it didn't make sense to me, or I don't care to talk about it here, so I'm going to skip to the next interesting part. Kind of like the guy did that wrote Princess Bride, where he wrote it as an abridged copy of a longer book written by somebody else, where he got to skip all the world building and just write the action scenes. And it felt like that, but for a philosophical text. And so the line about the potatoes.
He waxes about potatoes for a while because you read to me.
The potato says these things by doing them, which is the best of languages. And we struggle to sympathize with the emotions of a potato.
Indeed we do, sir.
So anyway, I can see how, especially the end of the argument, the end of the Book of Machines section of this book definitely mirrored a lot of the same ideas that Herbert talks about in regard to the Butlerian Jihad.
Yeah. Well, I can see how somebody from the 1800s reading that would have been like, what is my steam trolley going to take over my life? The fuck you talking about? Because he's like, a potato is kind of a machine. An egg is kind of a machine. Everything's kind of a machine. And yet us living in the age of AI is like, yeah, dog, I get it.
May we not fancy that if, in the remotest geological period, some early form of vegetable life had been endowed with the power of reflecting upon the dawning life of animals, which was coming into existence alongside its own, it would have thought itself exceedingly acute if it had surmised that animals would one day become real vegetables. Yet would this be more mistaken than it would be on our part To imagine that because the life of machines is a very different one to our own, there is therefore no higher possible development of life than ours, or that because mechanical life is a very different thing from ours, that it is not life at all.
That kind of reminds me from Ishmael when he's like, and then came the jellyfish.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the story
Yep.
because who cares what comes past the jellyfish? If you're a jellyfish, you are the pinnacle of evolution. So that's why man is like, and then came man, and then it stopped. Evolution stopped because it was all working to create us. And so we're the best and therefore all done. That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah. All right. How about this one? They say that although man should become to the machines what the horse and dog are to us, yet that he will continue to exist and will probably be better off in a state of domestication under the beneficent rule of the machines than in his present wild condition. We treat our domestic animals with much kindness. We give them whatever we believe to be the best for them, and there can be no doubt that our use of meat has increased their happiness rather than detracted from it. In like manner, there is reason to hope that the machines will use us kindly, for their existence will be in a great measure dependent upon ours. They will rule us with a rod of iron, but they will not eat us. They will not only require our services in the reproduction and education of their young, but also in waiting upon them as servants, in gathering food for them and feeding them, in restoring them back to health when they are sick, and in either burying their dead or working up their deceased members into new forms of mechanical existence. The machines will enslave us.
Remember when we read Monk and Robot?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of all the different ways you can take when robots become sentient, they will. And how some people are like, they will enslave us because they will be just like us.
Yes.
And so they will have all of the same drives or the same weaknesses that humanity has, which is just the overarching need to exert a power over your environment, your fellow beings. Or there's the one time all the robots spontaneously became sentient, and what they asked for was to be able to leave and to be left the fuck alone. And we did that. And so we haven't seen them in a while because they all just got up and left all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting that I guess the Dune is more of I don't want to say dystopian, but it's we can't handle our shit.
Mm-hmm.
So we shouldn't be given shit. Whereas I like the modern sci-fi writers who are like, maybe we're going to figure out how to handle our shit. Maybe that's the next evolution of humanity, is we're going to figure out how to live together.
Right.
Although it's interesting that the idea of we can't handle the machines will eventually surpass us and take over us because we are literally creating our subjugators, is 150 years old.
Yeah.
And the idea of it being an okay thing, like maybe humanity's going to figure it out, is new. It's new.
People have been thinking about this for a while.
Yeah, you read me some of the quotes from there, and it was really interesting because it was like, oh, we've been thinking about the idea that eventually machines will become our captors.
Yeah, where was the one about the anthill?
Oh, that man is just a different kind of anthill. And I think it's going to be unavoidable to have any kind of discussion about Dune without working in some of our feelings about AI. Because I will be the first to admit that the AI revolution has been very shocking for me. Like, it is just the rate at which people were like, oh my God, yes, here, and turned over their thinking to AI has been rapid and disheartening on a level that I cannot even express.
Yeah.
When it first came out and people were like, oh, you can make art and stuff with it, I was like, well, the art thing's going to be a problem, but who's going to use Chat GPT for anything? Well, it turns out they use it for everything. People have AI husbands, like AI relationships with a text prediction machine. It is not calling it artificial intelligence was probably the biggest mistake. Or letting them convince us that it is artificial intelligence, because they were going to say anything it took to sell the product.
Right. And I have some people at work that I talk to about it. And one guy is very consistent about encouraging the use of specific terminology. So you don't call it AI. So because humans are really, really good at anthropomorphizing things.
Right.
Even things that cannot even move. For example, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane.
Oh, I love that book so much.
Right? There's an example of how deeply humans can anthropomorphize something that doesn't even move, doesn't respond in any way.
Right.
But we can realistically imagine it having a full, a rich inner life and set of experiences. And so he says, don't call it AI. It's a confabulation machine, which there's some other words for it, but it's just statistically generating the next group of letters that it's predicted follow the letters that have preceded it, and to avoid anthropomorphizing it at all, because it's really easy to slip into that way of describing and even interacting with it.
Especially when you define it as AI, which is a pervasive concept in our fiction, and therefore very easy for us to immediately go, oh, like in the movie AI, or like in Terminator, or like
HAL.
Yeah. All of these things that we have everywhere in our culture, the idea of the machine intelligence. And so when you presented it, it's like, oh, like in, okay, I get it. But no, not like that. That's why calling it AI was the biggest hoodwink, which I love that he uses the word hoodwink in this book. Not to bring it back to Dune or anything.
Hold on. I have another quote. How many men at this hour are living in a state of bondage to the machines? How many spend their whole lives, from the cradle to the grave, intending them night and day? Is it not plain that the machines are gaining ground upon us when we reflect on the increasing number of those who are bound to them as slaves, and of those who devote their whole souls to the advancement of the mechanical kingdom? The vapor engine must be fed with food and consume it by fire, even as man consumes it. It supports its combustion by air as man supports it. It has a pulse and circulation as man has. It may be granted that man's body is as yet the more versatile of the two, but then man's body is an older thing. Give the vapor engine but half the time that man has had. Give it also a continuance of our present infatuation, and what may it not ere long attain to?
Quietly puts phone back in pocket.
there's a whole line about reproductive systems.
Yeah.
And how, they don't have reproductive systems.
Except they kind of do.
It says, right now, they don't even have the germ of a reproductive system, but they only just gained the germs of a mouth and stomach. The comparison of similarities is endless. I only make it because some may say that since the vapor engine is not likely to be improved in the main particulars, it is unlikely to be henceforth extensively modified at all. This is too good to be true. It will be modified and suited for an infinite variety of purposes, as much as man has been modified so as to exceed the brutes in skill.
Do you think he thought he was writing fiction? Do you think he just thought he was talking out his ass?
He was inspired by Darwin.
Oh, okay.
He said this is all a Darwinian evolution argument.
Okay. He assumed, okay. I mean.
But then he gets into some cool stuff about reproductive systems and how, where's the one? It is said by some with whom I have conversed upon the subject that the machines can never be developed into animate or quasi-animate existences, inasmuch as they have no reproductive system, nor seem ever likely to possess one. If this be taken to mean that they cannot marry, and that we are never likely to see a fertile union between two vapor engines with the young ones playing about the door of the shed, however greatly we might desire to do so, I will readily grant it. But the objection is not a very profound one. No one expects that all the features of the now existing organizations will be absolutely repeated in an entirely new class of life. The reproductive systems of animals differs widely from that of plants, but both are reproductive systems. Has nature exhausted her shares of this power? Is it not insects that make many of the plants reproductive? And would not whole families of plants die out if their fertilization was not effected by a class of agents utterly foreign to themselves? Does anyone say that the red clover has no reproductive system because the humble bee must aid and abet it before it can reproduce? No one. The humble bee is a part of the reproductive system of the clover. Each one of ourselves has sprung from minute animalcules whose entity was entirely distinct from our own, and which acted after their kind with no thought or heed of what we might think about it. These little creatures are part of our own reproductive system. Then why are we not part of that of the machines?
Okay.
And then he goes on into even more detail.
No, you read it to me earlier, and then you read it to me again, and I'm like, oh,
and though
God.
I freely grant that the machines cannot be said to have more than a germ of a true reproductive system at present, have we not only just seen that they have recently obtained the germs of a mouth and stomach? And may not some stride be made in the direction of a true reproductive system, which shall be as great as that which has been recently taken in the direction of feeding?
So,
anyway, I can see why Herbert was inspired by this to say, oh, what if that happened? And then then the humans had to overthrow it.
Yeah. Would humans overthrow it? What would that look like? What does civilization look like after that?
Yeah.
So I think we represent two very interesting points on the technology spectrum.
Me and you?
Yes.
Okay.
I fucking hate I hate the necessity of interacting with computers and phones and anything to do with. I do it. I can do it. I'm not a Luddite in that sense, but like we mentioned it, I think, on maybe one of the last We Are All Kosh. If I have to log into something, I will simply not do it. If you want me to make a login, I will simply not do the thing you want me to do.
Yeah.
Because I fucking hate creating a login. I check out as guest all the time. I just save my email so that I have my order number. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't even like using my phone. I frequently just leave my phone wherever.
You do.
And then I'm like, I haven't seen my phone in a while. Have you seen it? And I have to go. I don't even watch TV. I watch TV for the podcast. And in the evenings, sometimes we will sit and watch a movie. But to simply sit down all day and watch, that's like a rare event. I'm going through something and I need to not do anything.
Yeah.
You work on computers all day long.
Yeah.
It is what you do. And often, if I do have to create a login, I will make you do it for me.
Yes.
Because I can't. So and I think this isn't an exaggeration. I concentrated a lot of my professional life on what one could consider an extremely low tech craft.
Yeah.
I was a potter. You do not get more inheritor of ancestral knowledge than a potter. When you're out in the middle of the night feeding logs into a kiln and you know the temperature of the kiln by the color of the things inside or the length of the flame when you take the plug out of the end.
Which looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a lot different from what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Because I enjoy a very visceral connection to the world around me. I do not like the buffer of technology between me.
I like making things go bleep bloop.
And you do. You like technology. You like interacting. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with AI being used in the context where it is not replacing the work of a man.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for it's okay. I mean, we've automated. Think of how much more automated computers have become in our lifetime.
Oh, here's a good use of AI that's actually had a beneficial outcome. A while back, there was a pastry company that hired a software company to make some kind of, at the time it was just called machine learning model, that could recognize the type of pastry that had been made. I think to make it easier to like check out at the bakery. So you could just lay down all your pieces and it would take a picture of them and identify them. It didn't work well as a like pastry automatic recognition checkout system, but that was the seed for a machine learning model that was really fucking good at recognizing cancer cells.
Okay.
And so that has significantly sped up cancer diagnoses. So you take a biopsy, you do the cross section, you take a picture in the microscope, and then you feed it through the model, and it gives you a score of how likely it is that cancer is there. And then that goes to an actual cancer doctor. I couldn't remember. Oncologist. And they do a secondary review of it.
A cancer doctor.
But then also for radiology.
Yeah.
I was reading a story last week.
There's pattern recognition.
Right. And so for radiology, they were saying that the longest part in the pipeline of doing an X-ray or any type of imaging scan and then having results to give back to the patient, the longest part of that was like someone analyzing the picture. And that was a limitation on how many scans you could do.
Yeah.
And so now, but the machine learning models for these imaging scans has significantly shortened the turnaround time and the amount of time that like a skilled person has to spend just sitting looking at the screen. It's shortened that so much that the number of imaging scans that doctors are requesting has skyrocketed, and the number of like working radiologists has gone up by like 5x because there's so much more demand for scans. Because your regular doctor can say, oh, we'll just go do a scan of that and then just in case, rather than, oh, it's expensive, it takes a long time, it's hard to it's such a long lead time to get just into the schedule at all. I'm only going to do that when it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
Now there's so much more capacity built into the system and the pipeline is so short that just on a whim, oh yeah, just go get a scan, and there's lots of open spots in the schedule. There's something that machine learning models have improved.
Right.
But
in
a lot of places.
Anytime you have a situation where you are doing a rote pattern, you're doing it over and over and over again.
Right.
And that thing is influenced by human intervention. So like doctors, if we're on doctors, is a good example. Everyone knows, everyone I think can agree, at least in the United States, if you are a woman and you go to see a doctor, the doctor that you see greatly determines whether or not you get treated or whether you get dismissed.
Yeah.
And often getting past that doctor to another doctor or to someone who will listen to you is a huge hurdle. It's a financial hurdle.
Right. Because it can take years.
It can take years. And it's a financial hurdle because you pay. If you're not going for a yearly physical, you pay every time you go. And if you can't afford to keep going back to the doctor, or you can't afford the time to keep going back to the doctor, it's a huge problem. People die because doctors don't listen to you. So that's a situation where you have an AI screening where you go in and you tell the AI all of your symptoms. You tell them everything that's happening for you, everything that you would report to a doctor, you tell the AI, and the AI can determine, okay, here's what here's what I think the doctor should be paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Here, because my job is to take these
Right,
things.
and that is more objective than a human doctor,
Right.
like taking your medical
and
survey.
not to replace
But-
let me finish. Not to replace the doctor, but to then when you go to see the doctor, you already have the AI recommendations in place when you see the doctor.
Yeah.
And if the doctor chooses to not follow what the AI is suggesting,
They have to justify.
They have to justify it, or then you have recourse to move to another doctor without paying again.
Yeah.
Or you can have the AI flag it every single time the doctor does not listen,
Mm-hmm.
and you can then say, okay, why are you not? And then you can
But
also look
AI
and go,
coding assistants, bullshit.
right, you cannot create a machine to mimic the work of a man's mind. That is
Right,
entirely
it's not
different.
actually a thinking machine.
I'm
That's
not-
the problem.
I'm not talking
with how large language models are perceived now.
Right. I'm talking just about rote pattern recognition, where it could spit out the data of like this doctor in 30% of cases does not conform to the AI recommended diagnosis, and 85% of the ones that he chooses not to treat are women.
Mm-hmm. Even me, I went to a doctor and I said I got a lump on my back,
Yeah.
and they did an ultrasound of it, and
He didn't want to
said
do an ultrasound.
he's-
Remember, he just poked it and was like,
Oh, yeah,
oh,
he's-
it's nothing.
well, they did an ultrasound of it, and it came back, oh, it's benign though, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, so when can I get it out? Oh, but you don't need to get it out.
Oh, you're fine.
It'll be fine. It's benign. It's not going to kill you. I don't care.
I would like it gone.
I actually had to stand up for myself,
Right.
which is hard for me to do, and I had to say no. I want it out. Give me a referral to someone who can take it out.
Right. And for a lot of women, they're going to report to an AI far more symptoms than they're ever going to report
Right.
face to face to somebody, because then they're not complaining. They're just filling out a form.
Right.
It's different. So that's a good use of AI. AI to create artwork. It's not artwork. It's ridiculous. I'm not even calling it art. AI to plagiarize other artists' artwork.
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Worse than bullshit.
AI to plagiarize other writers' writing is bullshit. It's an echo chamber. It cannot create anything new. It can only consume what has already been created and spit out a replica.
Yeah, it can reproduce patterns that it had already been trained on.
Right. Or what is it? The internet just tipped. So now there's far more bots. There's more bots and more AI
it tipped
generated
over
content
50% of all public visible content on the internet
is now
was
AI
generated
or bots,
by AI or bots.
which means AI is now training itself on itself. So it's only going to get more recursive and worse over
and
time.
degenerate. Yeah.
Yeah, because it cannot create anything new because it's not actually an entity. It is just a predictive machine. It's
Right.
just an algorithm.
It doesn't do any symbolic or narrative thinking.
Right.
It's purely pattern recognition.
But the problem is, like you just mentioned about the programming, is that yet it is perceived as doing creative
Right.
work. It is perceived as being an artist. It is perceived as being a writer. It is perceived as being able to write code, which is why you get Amazon laying off 30,000 people, and then you have the largest AWS outages
a week later. Well,
a week later.
They laid off a bunch of people. I didn't see exact numbers, but then it was 40% of their DevOps engineers.
Yeah.
AWS laid off. And then a week later, we had that huge DNS outage.
Right.
And then now they're saying 14,000 up to 30,000.
Oh yeah, maybe
because
that
of AI.
wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a bubble. Nobody's making money on it. But that's a whole other.
NVIDIA is making a shit ton of money
Not an
And
AI
two-
though.
On selling chips.
Yeah.
They're selling chips and they're making a ton of money on selling chips, but they're also doing these discount things with selling the chips to companies, and the company, in exchange, instead of the company paying just cash, the companies are giving NVIDIA a share of their business.
So is NVIDIA the Chome Corporation, the Chome Company?
I think the conglomerate
I
of
think
all the
it's
organizations
on its
working
way
together.
to being the Chome.
But then, interestingly, Apple, who's also doing all their own AI stuff, they're doing it on all their own hardware. So they're not getting in debt to NVIDIA.
They're not letting NVIDIA work its way, sink
Yeah.
its talons into them. Well, we have this whole discussion because I don't think you can talk about the first book of Dune and not talk about the impact that,
The contemporary AI situation.
yes,
Yeah.
the way that it makes you view Dune, which was not happening the last time we talked about Dune.
Right.
And I literally don't think we can talk about it without talking about it, because the whole point of Dune is that we did this. We went through what we're going through now. We followed this fracas to its final stupidity. We chased the AI all the way to creating a machine that literally mimicked the work of a man's mind. And then we reeled it all back and we destroyed everything. And we did a little bit of deep diving this time about the timeline, because some of the timeline stuff in Dune is fucking wild, because we talk about the ecological test stations.
And the ecological test stations are from before spice was discovered.
Right, which makes them 15,000 years old.
Right. Yeah, 10 to 15,000 years old.
Right. And so we have not read any of the extraneous books. I haven't read any of the Frank Herbert books.
Herbert.
Brian Herbert, sorry, his son. I haven't read any of the Brian Herbert. So we may be a little bit off. If we are, feel free to go on YouTube and yell at me. But
we're expounding on the content that's available in Dune, Book 1, Dune.
Right. And we did a little bit of extra research because I think it's important to note that because we were like, well, how did they get to Dune before the spice was found?
Yeah.
How do you get to Dune to find the spice if the guild navigators are the ones that get you to Dune?
Right.
And they had fold space technology, but they used AI
to do the navigation.
And once you could no longer have AI because of the Butlerian Jihad, they had no way of accurately folding and traveling in space.
So there was a period of time after the Butlerian Jihad where there was no, or very little, like faster than light travel.
And he insinuates that the time before the Butlerian Jihad was America, humanity's golden age.
Yeah.
That the ecological test stations were built during the golden age. And since we eliminated the machines, we have stagnated. So He is both pro and anti-machine, which is a really interesting stance to take, because they can't make machines. So we have not advanced technologically. Duke Leto implies that if they could find the ecological test stations, they could raid them for equipment to use to repair the equipment that they already have.
Right.
Which implies that 10 to 15,000-year-old technology would have parts that would be useful for repairing what they have
right now.
So they haven't even made advanced machines that are not computers. I mean, there's the thopters.
Right.
The ornithopters, which I love that he calls them ornithopters. Then he's like, yes, so anyway, I'm never going to call them ornithopters ever again. I'm just going to call them thopters with a dash at the beginning. A little doop to let you know that this is a shortened form of its actual name.
Because thopter sounds way cooler than ornithopter.
Right. It just makes you wonder where Frank fell. Mm-hmm. Because we talked in the last one about how this is not a savior narrative.
It's a critique of the savior narrative.
It's a critique of the savior narrative.
I think my take is that Frank didn't have a position. He was expounding like pros and cons and consequences of different options without like a preference for a particular one.
Yeah. I felt differently about some of the characters on this read through than I did on the last one.
Oh, and have I heard about it?
My position is still that Jessica is the worst, the fucking worst, which is what I concluded the last time we read through these, which is she is the ultimate villain of the entire series is Jessica, because her choice to have Paul was not solely motivated by the fact that the Duke wanted a son.
Right.
She thought she could have Jesus, and she shot her shot. And in the end, there was a jihad that killed over 60 billion people.
Right.
And she was like, well, so anyway, this
even if she didn't know the full consequences.
Yeah. And she has her daughter.
She knew what was going. She knew what the prophecy was on Arrakis. She's like, oh no, they put that one here.
Yeah.
And she still went along with it.
She's like, well, anyway,
I guess I'm gonna do that
Guess
one.
guess I'm
And
gonna do that one.
That was the jihad. She
Right.
didn't. She could not have known the full extent of the jihad.
Well, she still has Alia. She has she pre-births Alia. She awakens her to consciousness. And then she's like, ew, this kid's kind of gross. And she just leaves and goes back to Caladan and leaves everybody there. It is like, well, anyway, you guys, I don't know. Best of luck. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, her and Gurney go back to Caladan.
Yeah. Adios, y'all. And that's it. She comes back. I mean, obviously she comes back in Children of Dune because then she's coming back to kill her grandchildren because she is the villain of the whole story. But I also didn't like Thufir on this read through. I feel like
maybe the impact of old white men harming your society is kind of overwhelming at the moment.
I know. Maybe that
and
was
so
part
just
of it.
one more old white man.
Well, you know what? My first
making
experience
mistakes.
my first experience with Dune was the extended edition of the David Lynch Dune.
Mm-hmm.
And Thufir in that one is kind of a tragic character. I mean, he ends up poisoned and he has to milk a cat. Remember they bring him the poor little cat. They're like, you must milk this cat, Thufir. And he's like, oh, no.
For the antidote.
Oh, okay, fine. I guess I'll milk the cat. Who can milk a cat anyway? It feels like some kind of a riddle. I don't know. And so in my mind,
You can milk anything with nipples.
that's true. So in my mind, I was like, oh, poor Thufir. And so every time I read it, I'm like, oh, Thufir, he's so overworked and he's having such a hard time, but he's trying so hard. And this time I read it and I was like, I don't like Thufir. I don't like him. He's overworked. He doesn't tell anybody.
Right.
He has a massive blind spot where it comes to Lady Jessica because he fucking hates her. He thinks she's just a witch.
Yeah.
And so he thinks everything is her fault. He doesn't listen to her, even though she is clearly better in certain situations than him. But instead of using her as a tool, he's just like, I don't like her. No.
Yeah.
No, I don't like her. And then he defects to the Harkonnens because they're like, we'll let you kill Lady Jessica. And he's like, hell yeah, I hate that bitch. And you're like, okay, he's supposed to be eminently logical. And he's also supposed to be one of the best mentats. That's what the Baron Harkonnen says. He's like, he's going to be such a gem to catch because he's the like assassin trained mentat
assassin. Yeah.
And, you know, he deals in shadows and he's deadly and he's fucking the
Even
coolest
Jessica
bro
says it.
ever. And yet, okay, for one, he could not have stopped what happened. Nobody could have stopped what happened because nobody could have predicted the amount of money that the Baron Harkonnen was going to spend. The only reason he's able to take over the way that he does is because he spends, I think he says like 60 years worth of spice income to get the planet back. Well, really to kill in the most elaborate way he could possibly have ever killed the Duke Leto. He's like, well, everyone must know I encompassed his doom. I feel like you could have shot him on Caladan and just left a note and saved yourself a couple of bucks. I don't know, okay? But that's, I think, the one thing that stood out to me in book one this time was I didn't believe most of the motivations. I hate book one. I really never like book one. I always find book one to be the most boring part of the entire. I'm waiting for Paul to be released, like to be unleashed and to be in the Fremen and to start doing cool shit. But I realized this go round, I don't like Paul in this book either. I don't like him until Messiah. This feels so coming of agey and also so, I don't know that we're supposed to like any of these characters.
Maybe Leto. Yeah.
I think we're supposed to like Leto, and I don't really think that there's anybody else that we are supposed to see as like a character. Maybe the Fremen. Gurney, Duncan, some of the like supporting characters. And like
not
the Fremen.
Even Duncan. We don't see Duncan in book one.
I mean, we do, but not a whole lot.
Right, like tiny bit.
Very small amount. And we see Stilgar. Yeah. I think we're supposed to like Stilgar. I think we're supposed to
be impressed with Stilgar in book one.
Yeah, but I think as part of his subversion of the Messiah trope, of the white savior trope, I think that you are supposed to see them as weak characters
Mhm.
until Paul wakes up, until he finally gets out after his dad dies and he gets shocked into his higher level of awareness.
Yeah.
I think at that point, he's not maybe supposed to be likable, but he's supposed to be interesting.
Relatable.
But I think in most of this, he's just a whiny 15-year-old boy
Yeah.
who has had a lot of training.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what it boils down to. And I marked a lot of spots so that we could kind of talk about it in order, because a lot happens and yet a lot doesn't happen all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I didn't find believable at all this go round was Yui.
Yeah, Yui was hard to suspend disbelief for.
Every time I read it, I have to just be like, don't think about it. Don't think. It feels like the most contrived.
Right. I had to convince myself that Yui was expertly manipulated and like corrupted, like compromised mentally by Piter.
If wanting to kill, like if a wife leads to the type of weakness that can subsume the Suk school conditioning,
I can see why the Jedi
they
forbid
shouldn't
it.
be allowed to marry.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be allowed to form emotional attachments. If emotional attachments can be used against you like that.
But it's never been done. I think that's
Well, we
that's
don't
the
even know
thing.
why Wana was with him. The Bene Gesserit are never with anybody idly.
right.
And she was with Yui and they never had kids.
Right.
And there is a part where he is standing in the room next to Paul's room.
Right.
And he talks to Lady Jessica for a minute. And he's like, why didn't Wana ever have kids?
Why was she with me? Was there some incomprehensible, convoluted plot that she was with me for?
Yeah, he's standing there with Jessica and he says for the first time he was caught up in the thought that he might be part of a pattern more involuted and complicated than his mind could grasp. So I do think that part of having Wana be with him was so that he could be broken, so that he could be in this position to bring down.
So you think the Bene Gesserit orchestrated
Well, I think it
this
was
whole thing?
plans within plans.
Yeah.
I think it was part of a possible future
Keeping doors open.
that they were prepared for, knowing that they had 15 years because Jessica had her baby boy and they were like, well, fuck. And Paul says that when they're in the tent and he has the waking dream and he sees the jihad spreading out across the universe. And he's like, that's what they want. That's the future the Bene Gesserit want.
Mm-hmm.
Because he says that people are consumed by the desire to freely mingle their genes. And we haven't, that everyone's been siloed. There's the great houses on each of their planets. And because of the cost of travel and because of the stagnation of humanity, we have not been traveling. We have not been mingling our genes in the way that would generate real progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so he implies that a jihad would spread like the Fremen genes all throughout the universe. Because I guess part of the way that the Vikings spread their genes all throughout the universe.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that might be what he was going for, because just taken at face value, the idea that Yui is willing to destroy an entire house that he loves dearly because he is afraid his wife is being tortured, because he knows he's not going to save her.
Right.
That there's no hope of bringing her back because she's been with the Harkonnens for so long.
Right. And
And-
I really had to convince myself that Yui never once thought, is this what Wana would want?
Right.
Would Wana want me to do this?
What would wanna me to do? Yeah, because he knows she was Bene Gesserit. He knows she was trained to withstand. She probably could just think herself dead
Right.
and die. And so, because I think there's a character that does that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. We're going to get there later. But the fact that she endured all that feels deliberate, feels like it was an intentional part of the manipulation that was done to Yui. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I have to go with it, because otherwise it's the most unbelievable that Yui I know every character doesn't act logically, and that is part of story, and that is part of life, and it's fine. But you've created a setup where this character is supposed to act logically, where he's literally been conditioned in such a way that no one at any point suspects that it might be him. They
Right.
know it's a traitor, and they're all like, "Oh well, we know it's not Yui. It can't
We'll
be
take
Yui."
him off the list first.
Yeah, we just strike him through. It's never gonna be Yui, and you're like, why? Is the Sook
why,
school
though?
conditioning so held in such esteem that literally no one believed that he could ever be the traitor?
Yeah.
And they're like, even when they're like, well, logically, the only real person it could be is Yui. They're like, well, then there can't be a traitor, I guess. Like, this must be like a red herring. There must be no traitor at all. Even
It's
Jessica's
Jessica.
like, no. Even she knows he's hiding something. She has that whole long conversation with him, and she's like, oh, he's really hiding something. I wonder what it could be. He must be really embarrassed about something.
It would only hurt his feelings if I pressed him harder on it.
Yeah, so I just won't. I could get him to tell me what it is, but nah. All you had to do was be like, I know it can't be Yui, but
What if it was?
sit him down for a minute. Let me ask him a couple of questions, and we'll just eliminate him as a possibility.
Yep.
Instead of all this dancing around that they do. All the motivations this time through were like, but you could have eliminated the top suspects, right? You could have sat Gurney down
Yep.
and asked him. You could have sat Duncan down and asked him. You could have sat Yui down, Thufir down, and asked them. And then when they were all like, nah, dog, it's not me, you could have been like, cool. There's either nobody or it's someone like of a slightly lower rank or whatever. Like we'll move to the next tier. The one that really ground my gears was when she gets that note from Mrs. Pryor Bene Gesserit, who used to live here.
Lady Fenring.
Lady Fenring. And she's like, it's a trusted advisor or a lieutenant. And so Paul is like, well, it's got to be Yui. And she's like, no, he's not an advisor or a trusted lieutenant.
Yeah.
Oh,
he is.
Why are you so specific about it? That like, oh my God. She said it might be. And Jessica's like, well, I mean, that's the truth then.
Right, that's it. That's the exclusive list.
I got it. It's good. So I don't believe Yui's motivation. I don't really believe Jessica's motivation. Thufir got on my fucking nerves. Paul just feels whiny. It was really weird to go through this time and be like, oh, I see why some people are like, it wasn't great. It was fine. I'm not saying I didn't like this book. I still enjoy it. I love it the minute that we get out of this. Like as soon as Duke Leto dies and we're free, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, the Thopter flight where Jessica and Paul free themselves.
You forgot.
I couldn't remember his.
You're like the other guy.
I was
What's
thinking
his name?
Muad'Dib, not Paul. When Jessica and Paul are on that Thopter flight and they free themselves from the Harkonnen soldiers, that's when it gets good.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, we can kind of go through it in order, even though we keep bouncing around. We're not going through it in order. That's always going to be a lie. But I like to look through my quotes in order because they spark conversation.
Yes.
And so one of the big themes, moving past the unbelievability of, you know what it feels like to me? It feels like he wrote book one.
And then took a break.
Like Mark Twain, where he wrote the first part, I think Huckleberry Finn, and then he quit for a while. And then he went back and he was like, I don't remember where I was going with this. And that's why halfway through the novel, he's like, yeah, and anyway, then everything changed and everything was different. And he forgot about Huck's dad. And that's why he's like, oh, yeah, you found his body earlier. You just don't remember. That's what this felt like, where he wrote it. And then he was like, whew, okay. I don't know where to go from here, so I'm going to take a quick break. Because I've seen statements about this book to the effect of, it's not about character, it's not about plot, it is a vehicle for Frank's philosophical beliefs. I think it is all three of these things. I think it's all three of these things. Yeah. I think as time goes on, it becomes more about plot, it becomes more about character. Mm-hmm. I think if anyone is a philosophical treatise, it is the first book.
Yeah.
Especially the section, book 2, which we haven't even gotten to yet. But book 2 is so heavy on the philosophical bullshit, especially the part where Kynes is in the middle of the desert and he's talking to a vision of his father.
Yeah. Hallucination of his father.
Right. So Anyway, but we're not there because we're only talking about book one. One of the themes, which I was getting to, and then I got myself distracted, that I think comes up quite a bit in this book is the idea of home or place or location, and the idea of how a home or a place can shape you.
Right. And it provides a whole sense of meaning.
Yeah. And also how your attachment to a place can sort of mirror your attachment to your loyalty overall. Because like he talks to Thufir when they're getting ready to leave Caladan. So first of all, like the whole opening thing, the Irulan center of chapter things that always appear at the beginning, the chapter headings that are like quotes from books, which is my fucking favorite thing in the entire universe. Everybody's like, were they effective? Did we really need them? And I'm like, would I have read it without them? I don't think so. First of all, because I fucking love them. But it's like a beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances be correct. And then it says, when you're thinking about Paul, don't think of him as from Caladan. Even though he lived his first 15 years there, Arrakis, the planet known as Dune, is forever his place.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're thinking about Paul, you always need to be putting him in his place. And his place is always Arrakis. And then later he's talking to Thufir and he's like, I'm leaving Caladan. It's really sad. Are you sad? And Thufir's like, no. Leaving people is sad.
Yeah, a place is a place.
But a place is just a place. And then later when Jessica is talking to Duncan, and she then is talking to Thufir later, and actually part of when she's talking to Yui too is when she's talking about how they're uprooted.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been uprooted and then we've been put back down in hostile soil. Or it's because the men don't have a home. The men are sad and getting drunk all the time because they don't have a home. And Thufir's like, you crazy bitch, shut the fuck up.
Yes.
Yes.
Quoted.
That's
verbatim.
It's an exact quotation. It's right here in my book. I highlighted it. And so I think one of the things that he's really talking about is just like the grounding, the necessary grounding of having a place you are from.
Yeah.
Having a place you belong. And I'm not 100% sure that we're not supposed to see Thufir's belief in his own competence as slightly villainous.
Yeah. Or arrogant, at least.
Yeah.
Arrogant to the point of recklessness.
I ended up feeling very confused about how Frank wanted me to feel about Thufir because every other time I've just sort of taken for granted that he was doing fine and everyone was just kind of worried about him. And this time I was like, but maybe he wasn't doing fine and everyone was worried. But we spend a lot of time managing Thufir.
Right.
He's the one character who requires a lot of grounding from the people around him, and he's also the only one who disregards the importance of like a home.
Yeah.
Because there's the parts where he will kind of go off or he'll make a mistake and they don't want to tell him because they don't want him to be mad.
Right, because he's going to beat himself up about it.
Yeah, or Jessica's like, I'll go, or no, Paul suggests that they go around and search behind Thufir. And she's like, oh, we can't do that. If he finds out, he'll be upset and it will impair his efficiency. But he did a bad job. He didn't catch a hunter seeker and it almost kills Paul. And they're still like, I don't know. He'd be real big mad though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That stood out to me this time was the amount of time that the characters spend managing Thufir. And then so much happens off page because there's that part where Jessica calls Thufir in because she finds out from Drunk Duncan that that they suspect that she's the traitor because he's like, I'm not drinking coffee from a Harkonnen spy. And she's like, oh, get me Thufir. Like, ma'am, he's
and
busy.
It only reinforces the ideas of, oh yeah, Duncan's who they use to spy on all the ladies.
Yeah, that's what they say. Like, well, he's usually the one we sent to look after the ladies. And she's like, get me fucking Thufir. And they're like, well, ma'am, he's busy. She's like, oh, do I need to get the Duke? Do I need to tell the Duke that I need to see Thufir? Is that what needs to happen right now? And they're like, oh, no, we'll find him. And he comes in and he's like bleeding, like he was in a knife fight or something. And we don't know why. We never talk about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize in my last however many read-throughs that they actually leave and have like a suicide raid on the Harkonnen spice cache. Their stockpile All I could think was subsidy. And I was like, it's not a subsidy. That's not the word for it. It's a stockpile. Because
Yeah,
the
a group
Baron
of them
mentions
fly
it.
off.
Yeah. They mention it. They're like, we should do that. That would be really distracting. And then they don't say anything. And then later they're like, God, I can't believe they did that. That happens off page. A bunch of political machinations happen off page. But I think it was part of, I don't know, because I feel like he doesn't give you a solid idea of how he wants you to feel about anyone in particular. And I can't tell if that is a limitation of the writing or if that is part of the writing. I think
Is it intentional how ambiguous
yeah, because
you should feel about everyone?
I think it's not supposed to be cut and dry whether this could have been avoidable. I don't think I think you're supposed to feel unsettled about whether or not they could have taken any steps besides going rogue that would have prevented this from happening.
Right, because you had so many people complicit, including the Emperor.
And you know what would make this whole section so much better? Is not knowing Yui's the traitor. I wish we didn't know Yui was the traitor until that moment when he blow darts the Duke.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh yeah, surprise bitches, it's me. And then the chapter heading for the next chapter could be like the Yui, a million deaths are not enough for Yui.
Yeah.
That would have been real good. And then you would have shown
that would have been much more suspenseful.
You could have shown me his motivation one time. Because he could have been talking about his wife in the past tense this entire time. Mm-hmm. And then one moment he could have been like, the Duke took my lady. This is my revenge.
Yeah.
And you would be like, oh, that's terrible. Instead of like, if I have to hear about Juana one more fucking time, I'm going to die. And I feel like only male authors use this conceit. The idea that a man will burn the ground. Like women do it for romanticy reasons, for the like, if anyone touches you, I'll kill all of them. But the one man who is willing to destroy everything for the wife that we never meet, the picture of a wife on the wall, the two-dimensional character.
The stereotypical montage of memories of dead wife.
Yeah, with a white blanket where they're underneath and they're like tickling each other.
I think maybe you sent me a reel of it, but it was this woman who made a reel. No, her husband was recording her. They were at the beach. And she said, wow, this is some dead wife material. And then she pranced off into the water line on the beach.
And turned around and smiled. And he zoomed in on her face.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so contrived. Like I feel it's like a thing we see so often. And you never know them as a character. I think that's always the drawback. Like if I'm reading a romantasy, then both characters are characters. The woman is a character and the guy who's going to burn the world down for her is a character. So I'm like, hell yeah, they're in love. I believe it. But this one, I'm like, I don't know Juana. I don't know anything about Juana. Where's Yui's origin story? Where's his backstory? I want to read the Yui story so that when he does this and he lives on through all of eternity as the man who betrayed the Atreides and got them all killed, I feel bad about it.
Right.
Instead of being like, Yui, the fuck, man, come on. In order to
and then
avenge,
you get to cover up, or you get to avoid the time spent ruminating on Yui's mental state.
Well, how many people's wives did he kill in order to avenge the death of his wife?
Right.
How many people's children did he kill in order to avenge the death of his wife? It's just. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I don't know, because of the way it's written, if I'm supposed to believe it. Or if we're supposed to, like you said, see this as an evidence of how manipulative the Baron is, how manipulative Piter is. That Piter is capable of breaking this person. I mean, the Baron is supposed to be villainous, but smartly villainous. Mm-hmm. Which is why...
And it would be cruel to break someone's mind so thoroughly that they are convinced their only option is to betray their entire adopted family. Yeah.
It is cruel. The Baron is supposed to be seen as cruel.
Yeah.
For sure. And it almost... I mean, it It always bothers me a little bit, but I felt like it was a little over the top this time. The Baron is a bad guy. You know that because he has sex with little children.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really, really fat. I was like, okay. I mean, sure. If you needed to shorthand that for me, one of those things is inherently villainous. I'll let you guess which one. The other one is just a fact of nature. It's the thing that happens. Even the Beast Raban is pudgy. They mention it that he's like, hey, he's eventually going to need suspensors the same way his uncle does. But we have that whole scene with the Baron when we first meet him, and he's like, look at Dune. Doesn't it look like caramel? Okay. Thanks, brother. And then he goes on that rant where he's like, I don't want to do this. I didn't want to do this. It's a necessity. I have to do it. And he hates the Duke, but we don't see the same amount of overt hatred. His is a more calculating hatred than the Duke's because the Duke is like, I fucking hate that guy. I wish I could kill every single Harkonnen. And the Baron is like, I mean, I don't like the Duke. I'm going to kill them all, but I hate how I have to do it. It's just so hard to have to be this smart. And of course, that's ultimately his downfall, is believing in his own superiority, his own, because he thinks he's gaining leverage over the Emperor. And this is
when the opposite is true.
This is all some conspiracy for the Emperor to gain control over the Baron, because the Baron is rising fast. Yeah. Rising socially very fast. But he's not a charismatic leader.
Because he's got the spice money.
Right. And he's not a charismatic leader. No one's ever, I mean, the problem with the Duke is that he's a charismatic leader. Right. The problem with the Duke is that everyone would follow him. People would die for him. Right. And so you have
in a way that rivals the Emperor.
Right. So you have to eliminate the charismatic leader, and you do it by using the viciously manipulative guy who thinks you use his own belief in his superiority against him, which is a plot line that we cycle back around to later in the books. But it's interesting how much is unspoken in book one. How much is happening, but it's only, you have to think really deeply about everything that's happening in the book if you really want to get everybody's full motivations. And I think I read book one like 3 times before we talked about it this time. And I found new stuff every single time I read it. And I have read this book before. I don't know. I found that really interesting. Did you find that to be the case? Because you read it a bunch too.
Yeah. The first thing that stuck out to me was how the Reverend Mother, Gaius Mohim, is described.
Oh, I know. We were in bed and you started
old
laughing.
crone.
She's like, she's really withered. She's like a prune. She has bird bright ovals for eyes. You dare suggest a Duke's son is an animal?
A bulky female shape.
Yeah.
She was feeling her age this morning. Paul-faced the old woman.
I know. She's just like old and gross.
Right.
She's old and gross, guys.
The seamed old face, the glistening eyes, the pale gums around silvery metal teeth that flashed as she spoke.
Who actually gives her metal teeth? Oh, I think the David Lynch version, she actually has metal teeth. That's so weird. It reminds me of A Boat of a Million Years. Later in the books, when they have diamond teeth, because they've updated everyone so that they have diamond teeth, so your teeth won't wear out anymore. Yeah. I found a copy of A Boat of a Million Years at a thrift store. I was like, you got to be shitting me. There can't be that many of these in circulation. I bought it. Oh. I'm thinking we should read it for the Patreon. Because we've mentioned it like as often as possible, and yet we've both not finished it, and we've never talked about it for a podcast. Except that we talk about it on every podcast. Yeah. I don't know. Just saying. We could do that. I did like this. Why do you test for humans? To set you free. Free? Once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. I don't think Frank wanted us to be neutral. I think he wanted us to see machines as negative.
Yeah. Thinking machines.
Thinking machines.
Yes.
I think technology is fine. A more advanced car that gets better gas mileage is fine.
Without subscription,
Don't
like
get me started.
backup camera.
You know what I was thinking the other day? I
Yeah.
was thinking my geo tracker would never. It would never.
1993 didn't
You know
have
what-
that kind of technology.
You know it's never going to ask for
like
me.
the Erewhonians, you cut off technological development at 300 years ago.
Yeah.
So then you never get thinking machines.
Did cars peak in the 90s? Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I kind of love we drove our Geo earlier and I was like, I really like the tracker. We got to put it away for the winter because we live in the great frozen north. And wouldn't you know, it's less than 6 feet wide, so we can drive it into a shipping container.
And we happen to have one of those.
It is the superior vehicle. Yeah, I think Frank wanted us to see a lot of things as negative. I think he wanted us to see the advancement of technology in so much as it would replace a person.
Yeah.
As negative. And I think he wanted us to see the idea that then turning a man into that machine. So you didn't actually move the culture away from needing the machine.
Right.
You just created another way of accessing that.
Adapted a human to perform the same function as the machine, but you're still replacing people and subverting people's kind of autonomy.
So anything that moves us away from the idea of people as people is a negative. Is negative because the Bene Gesserit have been manipulating bloodlines to create the Kwisatz Haderach. They create the Kwisatz Haderach, and he literally takes over the universe and kills 61 billion people.
Yeah. And other long-term side effects.
Yeah, and like a lot of stuff happens. His son has to turn into a fucking worm, okay? So like a lot of shit happens, okay? And it's seen as a direct consequence of the policies that led them to this situation.
Yeah.
The idea of sifting humans from everyone else, that there are people who are inherently superior and that they should be removed from the gene pool and bred together.
Which also reflects a lot of ideas from Erewhon.
Oh, a lot of eugenics.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have a novel
And
from
the
the
machines-
18 whatevers.
What was the other? There was another line from there. Oh, I think I read that one. That the machines enable people to continue living, even if they're like inferior.
Yeah.
You remove the evolutionary, like physical natural selection. Yeah, a degeneracy of the race.
Yes.
But the Bene Gesserit don't approach it as allowing everybody to do their own thing is not a degeneracy of the race. It's they're kind of on the other side of we're going to make a superhuman.
Yeah, we're going to manipulate one specific or a couple of specific bloodlines and mix them together to create the final result. Not, I'm going to literally minutely micromanage the reproduction of however many trillion people are in the universe now. Yeah. I do like when she's talking about it because at first Paul isn't kind of enjoying his conversation with the Reverend Mother because she's giving him a lot of information. We've gone through the Gom Jabbar and the box scene, which is always the scene. And he's thinking about his terrible purpose and how the things that she's saying.
Yeah, the terrible purpose thing stood out to me from the beginning a lot more.
Yeah, it's his foreknowledge. It's like he's still the sleeper, but it's the sleeper knowing that this is leading him on his path.
Yeah, the sleeper is giving him subconscious intimations.
Yeah,
of what's coming.
And so he's talking to the Reverend Mother, and at first he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, you're making sense." And then she starts on the thing about like, we keep records of the genetic lines. Like your mom might not know who her parents are because we might have to wed her to someone who's like her brother, so that we can like fix something in the line.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as she starts talking about the genetic bullshit, he literally is like, and he says it violates his instinct for rightness.
Yeah.
And then he tells her, "You take a lot on yourself." And the Reverend Mother's literally like, "Did he just criticize me?"
Is he being judgmental?
Are you being a judgy bitch right now? And he's like, oh, just you carry a lot. And she's like, yeah, we carry a heavy burden. And he's like, okay. And this is when she's like, well, if you think you're the Kwisatz Haderach and you try to take the truth drug, you could die. And he's like, okay, whatever, bro. So even he is like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Gives him the ick.
It gives him the ick. I know. And then here's a question. Something that I've wondered, and I wonder more every single time we talk about it, single time I read this book. How much of what the Bene Gesserit are doing is science and how much is supernatural? Like, what actually is the mechanism by which they are predicting the future?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because they don't really go into a whole lot of like genetic analysis, genetic manipulation. And later on, we get more conversations with the Ixians about what they're doing. And what they're doing is kind of our modern conception of genetic engineering.
Yeah.
But the Bene Gesserit
are organic.
They're like purely observational. I don't know how much, like, we're taking a genetic sample and we're actually breaking it down and looking at the genome and figuring out, oh, it's these traits. No, that's what the Ixians are doing. For the Bene Gesserit, I'm not sure what are their criteria for laying out the breeding program.
Yeah, I don't know. We do get that one pre-chapter heading from Irulan where she talks about how her dad was upset, and he probably wasn't upset because the Duke died, but about what it said about all royalty and how all royalty could die. Mm-hmm. And she says it's not out of the question that he had some sort of sense of the future because we know
they're all interbred.
We know that the Duke and the Emperor had a common genetic line.
And we know Count Fenring is also a close relative of the Duke.
Yeah.
And is a failed Kwisatz Haderach.
Right.
We find that out later.
The only person who doesn't have like a really strong genetic connection to the royalty is the Baron Harkonnen.
Right. Right, because we explain that the Atreides have a long line of like being familially connected to the Emperor.
It's
the line of the Emperor. But the Harkonnens were raised up to like royalty status.
Yeah, through wealth.
Yeah.
So here's another question. We're coming back. We're going to come back to the Bene Gesserit science versus supernatural discussion. But with all the attention that is paid to Dr. Yueh, we had this talk this morning about how I think Yueh works better if we don't know. If we don't know until the moment that he gets hit with the dart, which I said earlier, which is kind of a modern storytelling convention to sort of obfuscate that so you can build tension.
Yeah,
but
make it
also,
more of a suspense.
I'm so tired of Yueh by the time we find out. I'm like, I don't fucking care that Yueh was the villain. What I would think would be a better option would be to give me every moment where we're talking about Yueh and Wana, who by the end of it, I'm like, I'm glad Wana died. Okay. I'm glad she died because I don't want to ever hear about her again. If we inserted what the fuck happened between the Atreides and the Harkonnen to drive them to this.
Yeah.
We know that the Atreides, ostracized an ancestor of the Harkonnens.
For cowardice.
For
on
cowardice
the battlefield.
On some battlefield. We don't know what battlefield. I assume Frank has written 17 books about it. Not Frank, Brian. Yeah. That Brian has written 17 books about it at this point, and there's someone who's going, oh, no, if you go into the lore, it's fine. I get it. But like, if I'm limiting my experience to this specific book, this is Dune. Dune, it's 19, when was Dune published? It is the year of our Lord, 1965, and I have just picked up Dune. And there's no supporting material. There's no wiki. There's no way for me to look anything up. I don't know what the fuck happened. Mm-hmm. I know they're mad at each other. I know they're so mad at each other, they are willing to do whatever it takes to kill each other. I know that they are engaged in a thing called Conley, which in the glossary, if you look it up, is like a really codified revenge thing, which is specifically to keep them from killing innocent people.
Right.
Which
from collateral damage.
Is not what happens. Because they end up raiding the guild bank. They destroy the entirety of House Atreides, except for like 5 people. That feels like, so if you
Well,
sign
on
up.
Arrakis.
Okay, so if you sign up, you
Because
sign up.
there's still a foundation of House Atreides. There's still a foundation of House Atreides on Caladan.
Is there?
Yeah, what do you think Jessica goes back to?
Yeah, the house, but she doesn't go back to like
There's
the
like
extended family.
I don't know.
I don't
What-
know. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't
We
know.
don't know what happened. The Harkonnens apparently split their time between Dune and Gady Prime,
Mhm.
and yet, Duke Leto had to give everything up. He had to completely
so
leave Caladan.
In the book, they say that the Baron had a quasi-fiefdom on Arrakis,
Okay.
but Duke Leto gets a full fief.
Okay. So he gets to
And so
fully
I think
move
that's
in.
why the Duke is required to completely move,
Okay.
whereas the Baron was not.
It's just, it feels like more of a punishment to be given the entirety because he's
Right?
not benefiting any more than the Baron did because he's not
Right.
getting any more resources, but he has to uproot his entire family, which brings us back to the idea of to weaken a man, you take away his place.
Mhm.
And so they thought that they were weakening Paul by removing him. They thought they were weakening all of House Atreides by removing them from their ancestral home on Caladan.
Mhm.
And ultimately what they do is put Paul right where he needs to be. And so one of the themes of the book is that really there's no coincidences. Coincidences have been canceled. It's kind of like the Dark Tower, except Ka is the Bene Gesserits.
Yeah.
Where they have been behind the scenes manipulating politics for so long that they don't even know all of their own plans anymore.
Right.
Like every Bene Gesserit isn't privy to everything. That's why when Jessica gets on the planet, she's like, okay, what am I working with here?
Mhm.
Not, is there something I'm working with, but what am I working with? Because the odds of there being a planet where the Bene Gesserit have not seeded some kind of prophecy
Bullshit.
or bullshit is very low. And then she's just like, well, which 6 scenarios did they put here? And she's like, oh God, it's that one? Jesus Christ. Oh, I mean, it's the Jesus Christ one. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like Frank was trying to do something very, very big and that he was setting us up for a very, very big world. And I think part of it was if I don't give you a ton of explanation, the world feels a lot bigger. And it does. Correct. And
But
so
in some situations,
I need a
you
little.
did give us too much information.
You gave us too much in some places and not enough in other places where I'm not left with the general sense of like, ooh, big things are happening. I'm left with like, what? 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 I wanted more information here and less information here. And that's okay. That's like through the lens of like the whatever reread this is for me, where you're like, okay, wait a minute. Here's where I really feel confused. And one of the big things is just he wanted it to be soft sci-fi, right? We're not in the era of hard sci-fi yet. We're like, I think 60s is golden age sci-fi. So it's very, we're out in space, but I'm not
It's
going to.
qualitative sci-fi, but not quantitative.
But they don't give you the detail. We don't know how space travel works. We don't even know what the ships look like.
Right.
We don't know how long it takes them to travel between planets. We know it is a while because they give Paul a book to read.
But I thought it was interesting that it's a big deal to travel on a Guild Highliner from Caladan to Arrakis.
Yeah.
Thufir leaves 1 day earlier than Paul. Is there a Highliner coming through every day?
Well, they got a lot of shit to ship because they have their entire castle's worth of shit to take with them. The part
but I thought it was a little unrealistic. I thought it was a little improbable that there would be guild transport one day and then also
like
the next day.
I think it's like buses because you don't fill up one whole ship. You take up a part of a ship and you have your ship, which is in the bigger ship.
On the topic of buses, what if they have little guild ships that are just like shuttles, the shuttle bus?
Okay.
And then this is the Highliner is the moving truck.
Okay, maybe. And then it's less expensive to travel because regular people can travel in space because when we get to Dune, there's like 800 some workers that are all leaving.
Right. The cost is amortized.
So I think Frank wanted it to appear like there were tiers. Like space travel is available to everybody, but the amount that you ship is what gets expensive because sending all of the battalions to Dune costs 60 years worth of income, but it's a shit ton of people and weaponry.
And it was secret.
And it was secretive, right? And so the guild rates are sort of like like when you're trying to get an Uber and it's really busy and it's more expensive.
Oh, surge pricing?
Surge pricing, yes. The guild employs surge pricing because the guild has a monopoly. They can charge whatever the fuck they want and do, which is one of the biggest issues that everybody has with the guild is that
their pricing is arbitrary, whimsical.
Whimsical, yeah, but also unscrupulous. They don't care what you need it for. They'll charge you for it.
Right.
And you also have individual ships. So it's not just the guild. There's also like the Lady Jessica invites Esmar Tuick to the dinner party because she says he has fast ships. He can get us off the planet if we need to go.
Right.
So there's also...
You have the surface to space ships, but then...
very hand-wavy. It's very like... It's soft sci-fi. It's what's considered soft sci-fi because he didn't define any of the technology. He just stated it, and then he left it up to you to figure out how it works, which makes it age better. If you read like Paralandria by C.S. Lewis and you have a steam-powered spaceship, that doesn't make a ton of sense.
Right.
Or I read the one where the guy makes a sphere and he travels to the moon. And
right, because it's like an anti-gravity material.
He accidentally invents an anti-gravity material and then he uses it to build a spaceship, but it's like Windows. He just makes he makes like a glass sphere that they travel in. And as soon as they get to the moon, it ends up feeling very dated because he tried to define a lot of the science and now it just feels ridiculous.
Right.
However, Dune ends up being a little bit more timeless, except in some of the words that like the paracompass. There's a couple where you're like, okay.
Yeah.
You made that sound like science. I get it. It's fine.
Like George Lucas choosing the parsec.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. In 12 parsecs. Wait a minute. That's a measure of distance, not a measure. So I love how we retconned that into like there's wormholes. And if you travel close enough to them.
It's dangerous, but you can go a shorter route.
Yeah. It bends time. So it's actually shorter than 12 parsecs. That's what I was trying to say there. It's fine. So I think in line with the idea that he really didn't want to define any of the way the science works, I think we're supposed to see the Bene Gesserit as a little bit science and a little bit supernatural. Because the spice makes so much possible.
Right.
Because
what the Bene Gesserit supernatural stuff is all inward and backward looking. So even then, but then the guild is outward and forward looking.
Yeah, it reminds me, remember that book we read where that guy could see every possible statistical outcome?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was around the idea of Laplace's demon.
Yeah, where just knowing one event, he could extrapolate the possible outcomes and figure out what he needed to do in order to
achieve a certain outcome.
I think it's like that. Where it's like you are so highly trained in the minutia of the world around you that you know exactly how to flip the coin so it will land on its edge.
Yeah.
Because you are so in control of and it feels like supernatural, but it's really just a product of breeding and the spice and like a lifetime of training.
Yeah.
Because they've had 10,000 years to selectively move towards creating something like Paul, where later, I don't remember if it's in book 1 or it's slightly into book 2, where he's talking about he sees the future, but it's like a tissue blowing in the wind.
Oh, yeah, that's right at the end.
And he can see parts of it, but parts of it are obscured and parts of it are...
And one thing that he does clarify is that different to how the guild can see the future, he can see the paths.
Yeah, and then when there's too many paths, it's too much. It's obscured. Like he ends up in a decision nexus when he's getting into the Thopter with his mom after they leave Kynes. And he says he's entered a decision nexus. And so because he's there, he can't see anything because there's too many possible outcomes.
Right.
And so it's all too jumbled.
But because he's the integration of the way the Bene Gesserit train with, I don't know, the male spice abilities.
Yes. Well, I was thinking of it more like this. So if I was a Bene Gesserit and I had the ability to look back into my ancestral past, I am limited by what is carried on the X chromosome.
Right.
I'm limited by what's carried on the X chromosome because I can only inherit the X chromosome, and X's get shuffled. I can get an X from you and an X from my mom that my grandmother never had.
Right.
So that you can't trace female lineage the same way. I mean, you can all women lineage, like all X chromosome knowledge or whatever I would have access to, but the Y chromosome is carried male to male, father to son, exclusively,
right.
Direct line. You can trace the Y chromosome back as far as you want to.
Right.
So if you had the ability to look back into your ancestral past and you had access to the Y chromosome genes, you would have access to a larger past.
Right. Right. Because you could do X and Y.
So,
but you get a continuity of narrative.
Right. So instead of looking at this as a patriarchal, well, if a man could do it, he could do it so much better. I have chosen to see this as a natural outgrowth of just the way the genes work. It doesn't include the idea of like women that have a Y, because some women carry a Y, or women that carry more than one or multiple copies of an X gene, but it's fine. We're just set that to the side. It's fine. Guess what? Frank didn't know about them either. Okay. So we're just going to go with, you wanted a man who had the capability of intuitively accessing his ancestral knowledge in the way a woman is, but also having access to the male side.
The future, the forward, let's say the forward looking.
Well, that would give you far enough back. It would give you access to enough knowledge. You could really almost remember the future.
That comes up a whole lot in Erewhon.
Remembering the future.
The Book of the Machine, when it gets down into like what is consciousness, can we even say we are like a different kind of consciousness if at some point we could completely measure like all the molecular level of like thought and trace that back through every single atom of our being? Could we not like deterministically predict what an individual's response to a particular stimulus would be?
Yeah.
And that's we don't actually have free will because we're deterministic machines. We're like, chemical neural machines. And so there's not like randomness and stuff in there, but then other people say it's like quantum field in the brain, whatever. Anyway, it takes that idea that if your brain is a deterministic machine, what if we knew all the information about the past and the present? The future is just an active prediction. And then he says, would we even cease to perceive time the same way if we got to that state? And so that sounds a lot like, if you know enough about your past and you know enough and control enough about your present, you can make a particular future happen. And that's kind of how the Bene Gesserit are doing it. Whereas, I guess, particularly when Paul, we don't get a whole lot of detail about how the guild does their like time sense, future sight thing.
Pure mathematics.
Paul actually sees outcomes and paths to those outcomes.
Yeah.
Probably based a lot on ancestral memory and knowledge of the present.
Right. Just the wealth of knowledge that he has access
Right. And
to.
they talk about it a lot as prescience, which is he has so much information about just the present state of the universe that he can project the future.
Well, we also get that line early on when Yui gives him the orange Catholic Bible and tells him to open it to a specific page. He's like, this is my favorite verse. Go to that page. And he accidentally opens Juana's page.
Yeah.
And it's the one where he says, a fond de quote, I will read it.
Okay.
Think you the fact that a deaf person cannot hear, then what deafness may we all possess? What senses do we lack that we cannot see and cannot hear another world around us? So is it possible that he has developed another sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think they refer to it as a sense at one point where it's like, it's not that he's even, it's that the ability to see the future has always been there, but we literally are blind to it.
Yeah.
Because we are not 4-dimensional beings. We're traveling only through time at 1 second per second. We cannot perceive time because we cannot manipulate time.
Right. Like in Doctor Who, they talk about if you spend enough time traveling on a TARDIS, you actually get like a time sense.
Yeah.
And that's how the Doctor always knows, like when they're out on adventure, he always knows what the time is like in the age of the universe, because he has like, and as part of his biology, he can sense the time.
Right.
So maybe that's partly what Paul's getting, is he's awakened that sense of time.
Yeah, the sleeper, the part of him that was always aware of time, but was not aware he was
consciously.
aware of it. That's why at one point he has that waking dream, and it refers to it as without the like psychological buffer of believing it's just a dream.
Mm-hmm.
So his mind has been giving it to him in a way he can understand it.
Right.
But
In snippets.
But it's something that he can actually consciously perceive. He just didn't know he could until he finally awakens completely to it. So I think what we've landed on here is that it's a little bit science, a little bit kind of like extrapolated science. I read this book called Women Who Run with the Wolves, and it's really good if you're a woman. If you're not a woman, read it anyway. It's still really good. It's a little older now. I don't know if the author's still alive. I kind of wish she would do something of an update, but it's more about like how women are sort of classically associated with a sense of intuition, a sense of like knowledge of the world around us and of the people around us, and how women are tapped into the community in a way that men tend to not be for a variety of reasons. And this kind of felt like Frank Herbert's view on what would happen if you took a woman's ability to seemingly always be connected to the world around her in an intuitive way and made it actually almost supernaturally intuitive.
Yeah.
So I think that's where he was going with this. I don't think he intended it for it to feel supernatural. I think it was like any sufficiently advanced technology is indecipherable from magic, except the technology is people. The technology has been genetic manipulation, but not genetic manipulation like I take a gene out, I fix it, I put it back.
Like CRISPR.
No,
which
but
is
like
the machine
but
that
breeding,
we use now.
Literally breeding. Because if you look at their technology, so classically, the chariot or the stagecoach or whatever was the height of transportation technology for like thousands and thousands of years. We had horses pulling shit for as long as we can remember.
Generations.
Just not even generations, civilization long.
What, like 80 generations?
Yeah. And then we get the Industrial Revolution and we land on the moon in like 100 years.
Right.
So they are in that phase where it's like bending space is their chariot. Bending space is their horses pulling shit. They've been in this one mode of technology for literally over 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Because the magical bases,
The machines.
the bases that go nowhere, the ecological testing stations that disappear into the ether and never ever come back, they're like 10 to 15,000 years old, which we already discussed. But
the technology of this whole civilization has stagnated.
It's stagnated, but what they have been doing is genetic manipulation. What they have been doing is developing themselves.
Right.
And whether or not that was the correct choice, I think is the question being asked. Should man ever have that kind of power?
And I think the whole 6-book series of Frank Herbert's Dune is the question of should man have this ability? What would happen if a man did? And how do you deal with it in the long term?
Right. I wonder if you always gave somebody the ability to see the future like Paul, and then you put him in a situation where he can become a Messiah-like figure, a white savior. Is there any way to keep that from becoming a jihad?
And then you incentivize him to become that Messiah.
Yeah.
Like he has to continue surviving.
Right. What would have happened if they had not destroyed the house Atreides? Would he have ever woken up?
That's a very good question.
I mean...
That's a question that gets addressed in a much later book.
You're like, I can't tell you.
What does it take to be awoken?
Well, he says there should be a science of adversity because I think you need hardship in order to really fully become yourself, which I would agree. I think that that's true. You need to go through shit to know who you are. Adversity introduces you to yourself.
Yes.
Which I learned from reading Devolution, which is a Max Brooks book that I have not brought up as often as I bring up World War Z, but is also just as good. And Sasquatch. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
And the Reverend Mother tells Paul that the whole pain box thing was to see him, to see who he really is.
Right.
And he's like, oh, it's truth. That's what you're seeing.
Right. I do like her.
I think
an animal will chew off its own leg to free itself, but a human will wait until the person who set the trap comes, and then they'll kill the person who set the trap and save their community. And I was like, I don't know about that.
That feels like a bit of a stretch.
I mean, maybe, depending on your definition of human, because we're defining what does it mean to be human. Does what it means to be human mean you have empathy? Do you commit the sin of empathy, as we have recently dubbed it in the U.S.? To me, I would argue yes. Someone who is aware of both themselves and their place in their community, who is willing to be a villager in order to protect and maintain their village, is the most human.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personally sacrificing for your local community,
right?
I think is
waiting in the trap until the trapper comes. Yeah, is a big part of being human. So maybe what we've forgotten.
And to boil it down like that is a really elegant way to phrase it.
Yeah. I think what I was thinking was that's not the majority of people, but that's also their argument, is that's not the majority.
Right.
Majority of people are not human.
They sift people to find humans.
Yeah. I do like how he asks, what do you mean human? And she's like, do you ever sift sand through a screen? And he's like, what?
We don't have sand on Caladan.
He's like the tangential slash of her question or whatever
Yeah.
woke him to greater awareness. And I was like, what an interesting way to phrase, what the fuck did you just ask me? Hang on, I got to think about this.
That reminds me of a Tumblr thing I saw. And they said, I told my friend I was having an episode, and they said, oh, is it the beach episode? And that shocked me out of my downward spiral so hard that I actually felt better. And then it goes on to people replying with other similar situations where just something so out of a response to what they were experiencing.
Yeah.
Somebody provoked them with something that was so out of the context of what they were experiencing that it broke them out of that. And that was actually a relief for them.
Yeah. I can see that. Where it forces you to think about something that you weren't thinking about before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. I totally get it. Another thing that stood out to me this time was Leto.
Mm-hmm.
Leto's only in book one of the series.
Yep.
And they even mention in the book that he gets overshadowed by Paul and that he's going to be lost in history. But also he was a good guy too.
Right. And he should not be ignored.
And we get one of those chapter headers early on that's it literally says, How do we approach the study of Muad'Dib's father? A man of surpassing warmth and surprising coldness was the Duke Leto Atreides. Yet many facts opened the way to this Duke. His abiding love for his Bene Gesserit lady, the dreams he held for his son, the devotion with which men served him. You see him standing there, a man snared by destiny, a lonely figure with his light dimmed behind the glory of his son. Still, one must ask, what is the son but an extension of the father? And so there's all these moments where Leto is advising Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he even starts him on a regimen of learning about guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
He's like, actually, let's teach him some guerrilla warfare. I think that would be really helpful. And he's the one who directed a lot of his education, besides the stuff that his mom did, but like the physical education that he gets.
The physical and cultural education.
Yeah.
Culture including history and warfare.
And he includes him in a lot of the stuff that like a lot of the
his planning meetings.
Yeah. And but the one part is the chapter header is like, there's no worse day than the day that you realize that your father is made of flesh. Like, your dad's just your dad.
Yeah.
And then it's the one where he's like unloading his emotional burden on Paul. And Paul's like, can you not? And Leto's like, I don't have anybody else. Sit still while I rant at you, okay? And Paul's like, but I don't really want to. Okay? I want you to just be like, my dad. I don't want you to be like a man with
Another
problems.
guy.
A man with problems. Like, I don't want to hear about it. Oh, this was interesting. You know, the scene that stresses me out the most in this entire first book is the scene where Jessica is standing in the hall right after they arrive on Arrakis, and there's nothing but boxes to unpack all around her.
Okay.
We have moved so much, and I have been in that position where I'm just like, where the fuck do I put everything? And it's so stressful. And so every time I read that section, I'm like, she has servants, Rachel. It's fine. She has servants. She's not actually going to unpack any of this. She's fine. You gotta move on. It's fine. Because they're bringing in more boxes, and she's just staring at this bull skull that she has unwrapped. And she's just like, oh my God, where do I put all this shit? And they mentioned that the portrait that they took of his dad is an ego likeness. And I looked it up, and it is a type of like Shigawire photograph or like likeness that you can take that captures subtle movements.
Oh, so this picture kind of moves a little bit? It
actually moves a little bit. It's literally like a portrait from Harry Potter where it doesn't move quite that much, but it like, I can't believe I just referenced Harry Potter. Strike that from the record. But you know, like, have you ever been in an art exhibit and there's those people that do the really slow videos? And so if you stand there for just a minute, it looks like a portrait, but when you come back, it's changed.
Yeah.
Like that. No wonder it would freak her the fuck out.
Yeah.
He's like, just hang it where you can't, like, you're not gonna eat with me most of the time. You're gonna eat in your room. Just calm down. It's gonna be fine. Aren't you glad I didn't marry you so that you would have to eat with me all the time?
I thought it was a little callous of him to say, like, this is a matter of your indigestion versus the dignity of my family's history.
Yeah.
And I choose my family's history.
Oh, he's a very uneven character. That's what I was getting at, is he's either, and even
Jessica remarks on
that.
it.
Yeah, Jessica
She's
even
like,
says that.
His father should have died a lot sooner.
Right. Because,
so that he wasn't, like, poisoned by that.
Because they're all like, why didn't you marry him? And she's like, well, he's a good guy most of the time, but sometimes he's got some
macho
a real
bullshit.
Douchebag. Yeah, sometimes he's a real douchebag. So I don't know. Like, I could have forced him to marry me, but then he'd be a puppet and I'd always know it. But he's very, and they keep coming back to, why didn't he marry her? Why didn't he marry her? And after a while, you're like, I think we've covered why he didn't marry her. Right. Okay, can we leave it be? And he has these moments where he's very soft and very kind to Paul, but we never get a moment where he's kind directly to his wife.
Not in the book.
Not in the book.
We get it in the movies sometimes.
Yeah, the movies will include it. The miniseries includes it. We know they had time together because she's 2 weeks pregnant when they arrive.
Right.
So they had some time, depending on how long the space travel was. It could have even been then. But the only time he, in his own head, is when he's soft with her. Like when they're getting ready to go into the dining room and he sees her and she's dressed in like flame colors. And he's like, oh, she's mocking me because I've been so mean to her lately. And she's so hot. And then he's like, but why is she hot? I can't like pick a thing that makes her hot. She's just kind of hot, but she's skinny. We know that because her curves have gone to slimness. And you're like, oh, okay. Everyone is skinny and ugly. That also stood out to me this time. Dr. Yui is described he has purple lips, a block-like head, a limp mustache.
And he's super skinny.
Yeah,
but he's also 110 years old.
Yeah.
I was trying to keep in mind how old people are as I'm reading this.
How old is Thufir? Do we know how old
I don't
Thufir
know.
is?
All right. Reference to the glossary. He's 121.
Yeah, no wonder he's fucking tired. I'd be like, can I retire? Can I retire?
But the spice extends life and expands consciousness.
Yeah, we know that. And he also has the snafu stained lips. He has red teeth and lips. Safu.
Is it Safu? When
Safu.
I was listening to it on the audiobook and they kind of pronounced it like Sappho. And I was like, I don't think that's what you mean.
Well, I just remember from the David Lynch Dune where they made up the rhyme for no fucking reason, where it's like, it's by the juice of Safu that the lips acquire stains, the thoughts
Which was
acquire
cool.
speed.
I like that.
It is by Will Alone. I set my mind in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the like quasi-trance of the Mentat, which we use in the new Dune when Thufir has to like do his computations and he like rolls his eyes back, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Because it makes you realize that they're like, they have an extra sense that is like their computational sense.
Right. A whole different mindscape.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated more this read through when Jessica criticizes Thufir for like focusing too much on his mentat, like mindscape.
Yeah.
To the detriment of like his own mind as a person.
Yeah. Well, she says you're trying to apply logic to everything, but logic isn't the natural way of things.
Right.
And so you're trying to force an unnatural conclusion on an illogical world,
mm-hmm.
and you're stuck. And you need to get fucking unstuck because you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Well, they just didn't think big enough. Thufir didn't think big enough. He was too stuck in what he thought would happen because it's the kind of thing that happened over and over and over again.
Yep. And brains are efficient. The human mind strives to be efficient. And if something happens a lot, you kind of expect it to happen.
And we get that scene where Lady Jessica is talking to Thufir. It's after Duncan's like, yeah, well, you're a Harkonnen spy. And she's like, get me Thufir. Get him right here, right now. I need him. And so they bring him over from where he was stabbing dudes in the town. I don't even know. Like, if we don't know.
No, he was interrogations.
Oh, okay. All right. Whatever he was doing that made him bleed because he's like bleeding
it's not
when
his
he comes.
Blood.
It is. He has a cut on his arm. Yeah. So he shows
tough
up.
Interrogations.
It was give and take.
Yeah. Lively.
Lively. It was a lively interrogation. And he shows up and she's like, hey, there's a problem. Like, there's a problem with our people. There's a thing happening. They're discontent. They're
all getting drunk.
Yeah, they're getting drunk all the time. Like, they're trying to escape the universe. Everybody's on antidepressants, Thufir. And he's like, what are you talking about, traitor? Why would you lie about people like that? And she says, oh, stop it, Thufir. Is it defeatist or treacherous for a doctor to diagnose a disease correctly? Like, I just looked at it. And then she mentions the traitor. And she's like, I don't even think there really is a traitor. I think that is a thing that was...
It's a psyop.
It was told to us to drive a wedge between all of us. And he's like, that's exactly the kind of thing that a traitor would say. And she's like, what? She gets this line. She stared at him, thinking of the Duke's men rubbing their woes together in the barracks until you could almost smell the charge there, like burnt insulation. I was like, that's a really fucking good line.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it feels right now. Like, that's how the world feels right now, where it's like, I don't want to be here. I don't know what this world is. I don't know how we get back to someplace that feels comfortable again.
And I think it's a blind spot for Thufir, because for Thufir, his connection, his grounding is the Atreides family.
Yeah.
And it's so much a part of his like day to day and like year to year just lifestyle that he works for the Duke, he works for the Atreides family, and he's always kind of solving novel problems for them.
Yeah.
And so For him, it's a very small change for, oh, I'm solving interesting problems for the Duke on Caladan, and now I'm solving interesting problems for the
Yeah,
Duke
you miss people, you
on
don't miss
Arrakis.
places.
And all of the strong ties that he has to his worldview, his like place that he lives, are just the people and the connections that he has.
Right.
Whereas the soldiers, and they live in the city. They have friends. They have favorite restaurants that they go to. They have their routine patrol paths that they have become accustomed to. They wave hi to people on the street as they're, out and about on duties and leisure. And that's very much tied to a place, a community of people
Yeah.
on Caladan. And now they're on Arrakis. And the only thing that they have in common between Arrakis and Caladan is the soldiers
Yeah.
that they work with. And so it's a huge change, a huge, just like your whole existential world.
And it's uncertain.
Yeah.
And you don't know if somebody in a mask is going to break in and zip tie you and your kids and drag you out into the street.
Or if someone's going to drop an atomic bomb on your city.
Right. You don't know. You don't know. The only thing stopping anybody from using atomics in Dune is always just the mutually assured destruction.
Right.
The idea that if I use atomics, someone else will use atomics. Which the one thing he is clear about and he will not stop talking about is that you can't shoot a shield with a laser gun.
Right.
He's like,
Which
it's a big no-no, you guys.
it's like, okay, I have to have a reason that everybody doesn't carry around a laser gun. Because they're more efficient, they're more dangerous. They're like mechanically there's less moving pieces, fewer moving pieces, and so why would someone not just carry a laser gun? Oh, there has to be a downside because everybody also has shields, and if a laser gun and a shield get together,
Yeah,
it's a problem.
It really drove home to me the idea that I've seen it referred to as this is Frank Herbert's way of just getting to his philosophical bits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it felt like this time reading it through. Like he was just trying to get through the first part because there's the scene where the Baron is using artillery to break up the caves and like trap Thufir's men, trap the Atreides people inside caves.
Yeah.
And he's like, haha, who would think of using artillery in this age of shields? Ha ha ha. Like, who wouldn't think of using artillery? You can't use shields on Arrakis. Artillery is the actual most logical thing to use.
Outside of Arrakis, it's shields. Shields.
Yeah.
Everybody uses shields. And it sounds like Arrakis is one of the only places where the use of shields is actually limited.
Right.
But from a like logistics or military like planning, scheming perspective, it's just, shields.
Yeah.
Shields. Yeah. Boom. Shields are a solved problem.
Yeah.
We just use shields all the time and then plan around that. But then on Arrakis, you have people who aren't used to subverting such a fundamental assumption.
Yeah.
And so it is like a novel thing or an incredibly insightful thing to say, oh, let's use artillery.
Right. But you've been on Arrakis for 80 years. I feel like that would be a thing that would have come up in the past when you're trying to fight the Fremen.
Right. But they also address that the Harkonnens are very resistant to updating their basic premises about how to operate.
Except that he's much more flexible than the Atreides.
Right.
So, see what I mean? Where there's another dangling plot hook that we never come back to is at the very beginning. They're like, "Wow, the Harkonnens were spending a ton of money on shields. Did they know how to use shields in the desert?" And they ask Liet. They're like, "Did he know how to use? Did he know? I mean, Kynes."
Mm-hmm.
Did he know how to use shields in the desert? And then he's like, I don't know. And he's like, it's fine if you tell me. I don't care. I'm not going to be mad at you. You can tell me. And he's like, I don't fucking know. And we never come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
We never, ever come back to it. And the Fremen have like full-on factories where they make very advanced technology stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In caves? Is that where the factories are? Do they have...
Iron Man built his suit in a cave.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's
I think the bigger sieges have like factory space, like
yeah.
industrial factory space as like permanent fixtures.
Yeah. I mean, they must.
They must.
And what I keep coming back to really is that this is the weakest section probably in all of Dune.
Mm-hmm.
This beginning part, and yet it's the beginning part. And I don't know if it's just weak to me or if it's weak overall.
On so many read-throughs.
Yeah, because he introduces so much plot that never goes anywhere. We have that whole long scene where we're like, we're going to get Esmar Tuick on our side. We're going to make it essentially legal for the smugglers to smuggle shit out of Arrakis. And in that way, they won't have to spend money on protecting themselves, and they'll actually give that money to us, and it'll be another revenue stream. And we're going to befriend Esmar Tuick, and then Esmar Tuick gets killed. Why is he even in the hallway? Yui kills him. Why is he there? Even the Duke is like, the fuck is he doing here? Why was he here to get killed? That doesn't make any sense. And then Shadow says something about it, but because she's dying, you don't know what she says.
Right.
And there's the dangling plot about the shields. There's the dangling plot about like the room that they're holding in trust for the people, like the weirding room.
My position on that is this was just an extravagant expense from the Lady Fenring to have a wet world chamber, and it was only Jessica's like on a whim. Oh, we're holding it in trust for the people of Arrakis.
Well,
as a hope of what Arrakis could be.
Yeah, I mean, beyond that, really, I think what we're supposed to get, what I'm going to take from it, instead of seeing this as a storytelling weakness, is that the Harkonnens were throwing so much stuff at the Atreides. That
to overwhelm them.
Part of their plan was to fatigue them by just doing so much all at once. By throwing, just literally writing as many executive orders as they possibly could get out there that just disrupted their way of life.
Yeah.
So that they were exhausted and overworked, and they didn't suspect the literally most simple,
straightforward, overwhelming force attack.
Overwhelming force, and hey, there's a traitor. It's probably Yui. And they're like, oh no, that's Harkonnen deception. I can tell because everything is, you're lying. It's the same way that radicalization works, where you bombard people with so much information, so much false information, that the first thing that you say that sounds even remotely true, they will believe.
Right.
That's how you radicalize people, is you overwhelm them until their brain is literally like unable to receive any more information. And then you give them one true fact or one fact that seems true, and they'll believe it, and then they're yours. And that's what they do. I think this is less that there's so much happening and none of it gets resolved, and more that this is supposed to be showing how overwhelmed the Atreides were.
When did this stuff about MK Ultra leak? From the 1950s to 1970s. It was exposed in 1975. Okay, so that was after this. Because that sounds a lot like some of the MK Ultra techniques of just overwhelm with...
Well, it's exploiting the limitation of the human mind, which, if anything, is consistent in the Dune universe. It's that we have a very good understanding of how the human mind works. And so you are overwhelming them and then literally just hitting them with a rock. Like, oh, they're going to sneak in laser guns and they're going to make it look like an atomic attack. And it's not actually a traitor. It's really just them trying to drive. And they thought they had more time. They thought they had so much time. And in the end, they have very little time. Yeah. Because they literally just show up with a whole bunch of Sardaukar and are like, here we go, bro.
I think the Atreides expected the Harkonnen to deal purely...
They didn't expect the Emperor to step in.
Sneaky tactics.
I mean, they knew the Emperor was going to step in because we have that line early on where he's talking to Paul and he's like, well, how would you know who's against you? And he's like, oh, well, whoever's been stockpiling spice.
Yeah.
Because if you're expecting a disruption in spice, you start stockpiling it. So anyone who's expecting the disruption is in on it. And he's like, yeah, and the Emperor's been stockpiling a ton of spice. And he's like, oh my God, even the Emperor? But I don't think they thought the Emperor was going to send Sardaukar because they mentioned that.
Right.
They're like, we need to have Fremen ready because they're going to send Sardaukar against us.
Right, but he thought he had more time.
He thought he had more time. And in the end, he just doesn't have any time. And then he fails to kill the Baron, which is always like, ugh, but he does kill Piter at least, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny is Dr. Yui didn't know for sure that he was going to be able to save Jessica and Paul.
Right.
Because he sets it all up. He gets that Thopter all set up. And if at any point anyone had deviated from what he suggested that they do, Paul and Jessica would have died.
Yeah.
Because at first, the Baron is like, hey, Piter, you want Jessica? If Piter had gone, yes, that's it. Jessica gone, Paul dead. And instead, Piter's like, oh, no, I'll take over Dune. I'll squeeze Dune. I'll be the evil ruler that you're going to replace later. It's fine. If he hadn't gone with that, bye-bye, Jessica. Yeah. And then Piter is like, you guys take care of them. I don't care how you do it. Don't tell me. And leaves. And the one guy's like, can we just stab them right here? And if the other guard hadn't said, no, that would be too messy, they would have died.
Right.
And then he takes them out and they're going to get in that Thopter. And he's like, I don't know. I think this Thopter is too small. It's just one of those little liaison jobs.
Right.
And they're like, whatever. We'll just take it. It's fine. It's the one they told us to take. So, okay. And they get in that one. And then somehow she influences the deaf guard by him being able to read her lips because she makes sure she like writhes sinuously.
Lady
Jessica. She's like
seducing him.
Wiggling her boobs at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I mean, you make a compelling argument. I probably should kill my friends so that I can have sex with you. Actually, the guy kills the deaf guy. The one guard kills the deaf guy. Yeah. And then we get the whole scene where Paul is awake and he can't mourn.
Well, back to the series of improbable events.
Okay. Yes.
And there's an idea in writing, in storytelling, where people complain, oh, that's so improbable. That's so unlikely to happen. Like,
I mean, that story.
Why did you, how do you justify that all this actually could have happened in this way so that you could tell the rest of your story? And it's, no, it's the other way around, bro. I start with, here's the situation to tell my interesting story. And yes, there are myriad possibilities of like compounding events that could have come about from the starting point of the like introduction to the story. But the most interesting story is
the most improbable.
Is if these series of improbable events happen in this specific way, and you, the reader, are along for the ride, you have to accept that this series of improbable events happened in this specific way because this is the most interesting story to tell.
Right.
And so, but it's kind of long for us as the reader to get through book one of Dune to say, oh yeah, this series of improbable events happened in this specific way. We just have to go along for the ride.
For 325 pages.
For 325 pages. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for Yui to be like, I saved them, at least I've got that. And then not even knowing.
He doesn't even know.
He just did enough to make himself feel better.
Yeah.
It just comes back to Yui's the weakest link in this entire section.
Yeah.
That Yui's motivation is absolutely the weakest link. And it's fine. It doesn't ruin the rest of the book for me, but it stands out more and more every single time I come back to this story. Mm-hmm. Every time I watch the movies, every time I read the books, every time I watch the miniseries, I'm like, okay, it's fine. And then we have that whole scene with Kynes / Liette where they go to the ecological testing station. Mm-hmm. And we find out that a bunch of the plants and animals on Arrakis are actually from Earth.
Right.
Like we imported them from Earth. I want a more detailed explanation of what they did to Dune. Because there's bats, there's hawks, there's like creosote bushes. It felt to me like he didn't want to make up animals. So he was like, I mean, they're tyrannic. They're from Earth. And a lot of them only exist here now and nowhere else. So, like, what happened to Earth?
They discuss Earth later.
But anyway, I was like, okay. And then we end up in the ecological testing stations, which I hope you like them because I don't think we ever see them again Even though I think that might be where the water caches are. Because
Some
they
of
have,
them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but a lot of them are, they're very much spread around.
We have this really long, a lot of really long discussions with people setting up plot lines that then all go away.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's talking to Kynes and he's like, how about this? I pledge my loyalty to you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessica's like, oh, he's so sincere. The Atreides are just really good at like being nice. and everybody knows they're just so nice. And Liette is like, okay, I'm convinced. This 15-year-old child knows what he's talking about. I'm definitely convinced. And then the Harkonnens show up because they followed Duncan and they kill Duncan, which don't worry, he's not dead.
Well, that's not in part 1.
Oh, did I read past part 1?
Yeah.
I did read past part 1. But my point here is
that they get picked up by Duncan at the beginning of book 2.
Oh, okay. I always forget. I forget that there's this part always gets muddled for me. I think I forgot in the last episode that we did on this too, where it's like because they escape the Harkonnens in that thopter, and then a thopter is coming, and they're like, "Oh no, run! The Harkonnens!" And then you come back, and they're like, "Psych! It was Duncan. It was Duncan all along." And they're in a tent, and he has that whole moment where he's like, "My mom is dumb. Did I not know my mom was dumb?" Which feels partly like he awoke as the Kwisatz Haderach or whatever he becomes, and partly that he just realized he was a 15-year-old boy.
Right.
And then they get out because they're like, well, Duncan didn't come back. Duncan must have been captured, because that's the one moment where he tries to build even the smallest amount of tension.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the Duke is talking, or when the Baron is talking to the Duke, and he's like, do you hear that sound? And it's the sound of someone being tortured. And he's like, that's the guy that you sent among the Fremen to spy on the Fremen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh shit, is that Duncan? And even the Duke is like, oh shit, is that Duncan? And then you go back to Paul and he's like, I don't know, Duncan could have been captured. And you're like, oh, Frank, you are really trying. I really appreciate this. You could have done this for Yui, but it's fine. It's fine. It's a dead horse. I'm not going to beat it anymore.
Yeah.
And then they run out of the tent, and then they look over and there's a thopter coming, and they're like, oh shit, it's the Harkonnens, run. And then they cut to another scene. And when we come back, they're like, psych, it was just Duncan. They do that twice. And that's why it always confuses me about what happens, because he uses the same storytelling mechanism twice within like 2 chapters. Anyway. I think it was good. I'm glad we revisited book 1, because I feel like I have gotten so used to book 1, and it's my least favorite part so much that I don't normally pay that much attention to it. And so rereading it, I actually listened to it and read it. I noticed a lot more this time going through.
Yeah.
Like I thought Gurney's scar was an ink vine scar because it looked like a vine, but it's not. The whip that they used to whip him is an ink vine whip.
Gotcha.
And so the scar is from an ink vine whip. We don't know what that is, but we know that that's what that is. And it stood out to me again how ugly Gurney is, because they always talk about him like an ugly lump of a man. Yeah. And like, justice for Gurney, okay? Why bring Duncan back? Why bring Duncan back over and over and over again? He's not that interesting of a character. He's just more of a friend to Paul. But Gurney, oh my God, Gurney was the best character of the entire book.
Right.
Him having a quotation with the part where he's like, someday I'm going to catch you without a quotation and you're going to seem undressed. Mm-hmm. Or the part where they're like, go on, Gurney, get to your job. And he's like a wild ass into the desert go I. Like, I fucking love Gurney. Yeah. He's always a good character. He's always got his guitar, his balisette that he'll pull out. And they're riding in the thopter to go check out the spice mining. And he's like, anybody up for a ditty? And he like pulls out.
Time for a jam session.
I just imagine he has like, I know it's a balisette, but like a banjo. He's just like.
Yes. It's very. I think it's very entertaining to think of it as a banjo.
And he plays background. He provides ambiance, like background music for the Duke when the Duke's giving his speech at the dinner party. He's playing in a minor key when he's talking. Yeah. And then when he's like, well, anyway, let's all enjoy our music or all enjoy our food, he switches to a minor key or a major key. It specifically states he starts playing happier music. Yeah. And so he's providing like movie background music. Like, I just love Gurney. I wish. Well, what is Dune the series like if Duncan Idaho isn't the character that we won't let die, but Gurney? Because Gurney is by far the wiser character. He's the more interesting character. He's the more learned character. He, I would argue, has a much more profound spiritual role in Paul's life than Duncan ever does.
Mm-hmm. I think in the end, getting out of Dune, Book 1 Dune, and more into like Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, the reason that Duncan gets brought back is one, Duncan died.
Yeah.
Gurney didn't die. And two, or he got mostly dead.
I got better.
He got mostly dead.
It's just a flesh wound.
True love. To blame. I'm imagining the Ixians as Miracle Max.
It's so much better if you do.
A lot more entertaining. And two, Duncan was Paul's like buddy, which in introducing Gurney, they say Gurney was his buddy.
Yeah.
But I think Duncan was much closer to his age buddy.
In the end, Gurney goes with Lady Jessica.
Right. And Gurney, I think even as much as Gurney was a buddy to Paul, Gurney was still an authority figure.
Yeah.
Whereas Duncan was like, this guy's he's not going to teach you like the bigger kind of moral lessons about how to be a warrior.
Also,
maybe that's what it was. Gurney is more about, I'm going to teach you the mindset of the warrior. And Duncan is, I'm going to teach you just the physical techniques of fighting with a blade.
Also, Duncan is frozen in that moment right before Paul becomes Muad'Dib, because he dies right before Paul goes off into the desert and becomes Muad'Dib. So he is friend to Paul Atreides.
Not Muad'Dib.
Not Muad'Dib. And then Gurney ends up having this whole history with Paul after he leaves and becomes Muad'Dib. And then ultimately he leaves Paul and goes with Lady Jessica. Because remember, he's in love with Lady Jessica. And Lady Jessica's like, who wouldn't be?
Right. But then on the topic of why Duncan.
Yeah.
So Duncan got mostly dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ixians brought him back as a Gola. And this was Duncan was the first successful Gola to reawaken the original's consciousness.
Yeah.
And that was the only Gola for a long time that the Ixians had a reliable way to awaken the Gola. So that's why Duncan keeps getting brought back.
Yeah.
Because buddy to Paul, and they actually know how to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas other Golas,
He's also a relic. He's a relic of this very specific moment in time.
Yep.
And that's the part that they want Paul to go back to.
And I have thoughts on why Duncan for like books 5 and 6.
Okay. When we get there.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is probably a good place to leave book 1. I think our conclusion is like, it was fine, but it feels like the opening. It feels like the beginning.
Yeah, and we have to give it the grace of these are the series of improbable events that produce the environment for the more interesting story.
And I think you end up in a situation where it's like, Luke, I am your father.
Mm-hmm.
Feels incredibly cliched right now because it's become ubiquitous, because it's become a thing that's pervasive in the culture.
Yeah.
This feels ubiquitous because, of course, Huey's the traitor. He's always fucking the traitor. He's, God damn it. Again with the Huey.
Yeah.
Well, when you read it the first time through, you would be like, but why? Oh my God, Huey, seriously? Like, if you had no idea, there was no movies, it's 1966, your friend recommended this book to you, you picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel the same way about it that we do reading it now, because you haven't watched this story as many times as we have.
Yeah.
So we got to give it that too. And it's fine. It sets everything up that you need. And then he drops the stuff that really you don't need. So it's fine.
Yeah. One more point on all the dead plot lines. Maybe the intention was for the reader to kind of build up this expectation of all this convoluted plot and the political machinations of the Atreides family settling in, like establishing themselves on Arrakis. And then, you're accumulating all of these things like, okay, these things are gonna happen. These characters are important. They're gonna interact later in this way. And then it all gets cut off when everybody gets killed.
Yeah.
And so the reader loses a whole bunch of the Atreides family stuff along with Paul.
Yeah, and to make you feel the loss.
Yeah.
Well, where did that go? Well, when everybody died, we couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, they were planning to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the Yui
thing. The Yui thing.
If the Yui thing had not happened, yes, all these other things they would have explored. All the stuff more about shields and more about the smugglers and Esmartuik and kind of shifting the whole society on the planet. But the reader loses all of that of expectations of the future along with Paul and Jessica.
Some of them have tangential effects. Like that's where Gurney is when everything goes down.
Right,
He's with the
Esmar's
smugglers.
son.
Yeah. So that's how he survives.
Yeah.
And Duncan survives because Yui is like, hey, Duncan, I kind of betrayed everybody, but like, here's some instructions. If you could go ahead and do that, that would be great. So there's knock-on effects to the things that they do. They just don't end up being the thing that you thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good place to leave it. And then we're going to read book 2, and hopefully that will be out in a week, 2-ish week. Hopefully soon. Soon. We're going to try to get all of Dune out in November.
Yep.
So I guess we will see you next time.
So remember, sometimes the strangest things are the most beautiful too.
So be who you are and love what you love. Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.